This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is brought to you by Lexipol, the experts in policy, training, wellness support, and grants assistance for first responders and government leaders. To learn more, visit lexipol.com. That's Lexipol.com. Now let's get into the show.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. I am Aaron Zamzow. Over there is Janelle Fasquette, and we are going to take you on a little journey to hopefully enlighten you, better your day, motivate you to be a little bit better, inform you on some of the interesting topics that are facing our fire service. And today it's just Janelle and I. How are you, Janelle? Happy, January or 2023 here.
Happy January. I'm doing good, Aaron. I'm doing good.
Good.
How are you doing?
I'm having a blast, and I'm having a blast because we get to interview some very forward-thinking leaders of the fire service who, every time we do an interview, I just get super fired up, and I hope those of you listening that you also will feel that same way. And we get to do some of these interviews, and then it takes a couple weeks or so sometimes to get them active and out there and published. Um, and it's hard for me to not tell people, hey, this is what's coming up. And this is one of the episodes that we will reference some of the podcasts that we've done in the past, and you and I'll get to tackle some interesting things, some interesting topics, and one of which I'm super I'm excited to talk about, and I don't know if that's the right terminology. When we do the show prep, we just talk about, hey, what's going on in the fire service. I like to try to be very positive with things, and yes, do you? I was gonna say you like to be the the negative, no, but you don't. Like, we try to be positive, but
I'm
we
the
also try to
cynic.
give,
It's the yin and yang to our
yeah,
dynamic.
yep, yeah. That's why you wear black all the time. I'm
Oh
kidding.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But you brought this to my attention. This is it's just one of the things we love about fire service sometimes are the stories within, and there's a story that you brought to my attention about. Um, uh, you're a little bit better versed on it if you want to kind of just explain,
Oh
how you
yeah, and I'll
how how you got how it got your attention.
yeah. And I want to add also that part of today is we want to talk about just the big stories that crossed our desk this month. There were a lot of big stories that got a lot of attention, a lot of engagement with our followers on social media. Um, and this story that I'm showing here for folks watching the video version, this is the story about fallen FDNY firefighter Billy Moon, who died in a training incident in December. He was an organ donor, and he ended up donating of his organs, two of which went to retired FDNY firefighters. I just thought it was unbelievable. It was such a unique and special story to think about, his death being, obviously his death is tragic. He did not die in vain. He's able to do something really positive even in his death. And his wife, Christina, shared this with the media, with the department, about the ultimate donation of these organs. I believe it's his liver and his lungs that went to two retired FDNY members. And it's such an emotional story. It's a heartbreaking story, but it shows also the power of good coming out of something really, really devastating to this family, and how, his wife was able to remain positive about it as well, and show, you know, how her husband was so kind in all aspects of life, and even now in his
Yeah,
death as well.
all the way through, even to the last breath, still be able to give back. He donated to 5 different people, I think, correct?
Yeah, 5 organs. I don't know if they went to 5 different people or if anybody received 2. I
Okay.
assume 5 different people,
Yeah.
but that's amazing, and it also just, for me personally, it made me double check that I'm an organ donor and think about that, and I just hope it's a reminder to everybody that we should, if it fits within our belief system, whether, personal beliefs, religious beliefs, whatever that might be, if you are open to being an organ donor, um, please consider that. Please think about it and do what you need to do. Fill out that paperwork you need to fill out because, if something happened, God forbid something happened, we can still make a difference and other people's lives as well.
And just what an uplifting, obviously, story and situation, but I think this is something that I try to strive to find is, there's a lot of negative things that go on, right? And we in the
Mhm,
fire service get surrounded by a lot of that sometimes, and yet when you start to look around you, there's 2 perspectives you can look at. One, you can look at, I think, a lot of the negative things, and sometimes you need to be aware of that, but also make sure that you take time to look at the other side. And
mhm.
obviously, this is a situation we didn't you don't want to see, but how you can still make an impact, um, and be positive and take, this story. And I just looked at it. It was kind of heartwarming, and that's what I can, focused on. Then, as soon as you sent that to me, I think it was a week ago or something like that. I'm like, you know what? Like, people are inherently good, and sometimes you got to search for it a
Mhm,
little bit. And I thought that was a real fitting way to just start off today. Like, hey, this year could be difficult. I know a lot of friends and family members that, have lost some loved ones already in the short time. Good friend of mine, his dad passed away.
mm,
I was very fortunate to be in the same city that they took him to, and I was able to kind of talk my way into the hospital. And um, somehow I get myself in these situations, but it was great because I was able to be there, and it was actually a very peaceful, occurrence. And the family was accepting of it. And just things like that. It's life is tough. Look for some positivity.
yeah,
And uh, and here's a great example of it. So, I'm glad you brought that to my attention, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about right
yeah.
away. um, of course, now your editorial and your editor side also threw what at me. What was the next thing that we want to address
Oh,
here?
man, the next one was we're doing a hard pivot here. This is like a totally
Yeah.
totally different vibe, but this was one of the most controversial articles we've seen in a while, and or I shouldn't say article, but the story itself is quite controversial. A firefighter in Alabama who was fired after complaints were made about her having a neck tattoo, and then she tried to she grew out her hair to cover the neck tattoo because while she thought she was aligned with department policy about tattoos, here she went ahead, grew out the hair to cover it, and then someone complained about the hair and she got fired. And it brought up a whole bunch of questions about grooming standards and policy,
Hmm.
policy, 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 because really this comes back to what the department policy was. And that's really the sticking point here. That's the controversial element is the firefighter is basically saying that other people had similar tattoos and were not, no one was complaining about them. There was
Yeah.
no disciplinary action about them. And, the department allegedly went back and rewrote the policy in a way that could justify her firing.
Firing, yeah,
Now,
after the fact.
after the fact.
Yep.
So now I am not in Alabama. I am not the reporter on the ground here. This is sourced from multiple different sources. Um, you know, but I understand that there very well could be other parts of the story that we're not familiar with.
Yeah,
But it does bring up a lot of questions about what's happening here and really the importance of having standards or excuse me, policies in place that are
yep.
solid. Um, and we have a follow-up article. I'll go into that in a second about
Okay.
kind of how those policies can be fair. But what was your take on this, Aaron?
Well, I did a little research on it, so I was just, obviously, working in the fire service and going to a lot of conferences, you see there's some great artwork, that people have, and tattoos now, I think, 36% of all Americans between, like, ages 18 and 29 have at least one tattoo. It's up to, like, 40% for those that are older, 30% of US college graduates have tattoos, so they're very common place, and obviously, I think even more so that those numbers are higher, I think, in the fire service and military, and, it brings up something, and I watched the video on it, and the tattoo that was in question was actually very, very beautiful, very pretty, like, it wasn't, derogatory in any manner, and, um, you mentioned policy, and there's always 2 sides to every story. So, is there something underlying that affected this particular decision? I don't know, like you were saying, there like I said, there's 2 stories to this. Um, but if your policy is strong is one thing. If you have policy where it states that, I think where we as a fire service need to get better is then actually following through with the policy, right? Like there's 2
Mhm.
separate things that happen there is one, you write the policy and it sounds like for some people it was followed and others it was not. And that's where I um see leadership coming in and um and also like the strength with your policy only lies in how well it's adhered to and um how well you hold people accountable for it. Otherwise, it's just blah 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 on the wall or in a book. And I know a lot of departments that haven't updated policy. So if you wrote your policy on that 20 years ago, well, not everybody had tattoos back then. So how do you change that policy a little bit? And um, so I think it brings forth, like you said, this is a huge kind of issue because then right now we could talk about tattoos and what a policy is, but then look at like hair. And
Yeah.
that's another part of this. And another article that you sent to me about grooming policies. And a lot of departments, there's litigation right now because members they either have religious beliefs or in some
Mhm.
cases they actually have medical conditions where they cannot, shave all the way. And
Mhm.
how are departments handling those situations? Some are firing them and some are trying to work with them and the article on that I can't off the top of my head. I think are you sharing that right now? What was the author on that one?
Yeah, so Linda Willing wrote
That's
this
yep.
great
Linda.
analysis piece, Firefighter Grooming Standards, an evolving policy issue. And she really breaks it down. And I mean, obviously, there's, like we said, there's a lot more to this story. The firefighter um, was also thinking that there might be a retaliation element to it based on a completely separate incident that had
Right.
nothing to do with the hair or tattoo. We won't get into all of that here because we are not there. But it, like we said, it brings up good questions. So Linda really kind of outlines this for us, whether it's talking about tattoos, piercings, hair. Really, it comes back to these 4 factors. Is the policy fair? Does it apply to all members? Is it inclusive?
Yep.
You know, um, is there a professionalism element for the basis of all of these policies? And does it align with safety provisions and protocols? So certainly, jewelry might pose a safety risk. So there are certain things, you probably can't do. You can't wear. Um, Linda points out in this article, though, of course, that jewelry can, in most cases, be removed
Yep.
at least,
Yep. Yeah.
whereas, our hair, tattoo, these are not easily adjusted things in some ways. But she also talks about how the Army just updated their policies, and, the fire service, we can certainly learn, because the Army is gonna see a lot of this. You
Yeah,
mentioned the military before, and the stats are pretty high with tattoos. But similar to the fire service, these are uniform services. So it we understand the need for uniformity
professionalism. Yeah,
and
and uniformity
professionalism.
and
Yeah,
professionalism. Correct. Yeah. Um,
absolutely.
I do. The safety issue about it. I understand totally. And one of the issues going on with that, like, it's folliculitis, I believe, is what a lot some members have, where if they shave, they get
Mhm,
like an infection in their face, or and can the mask seal? And manufacturers have chimed in and said they have certain parameters, and in this case, this is maybe where we can look at research, right? Like,
mhm.
ask some people to do research, ask for the manufacturers to step in and give us a little bit more guidance on that. That's one option. And, um, it does go back, though, again, back to that policy and updating it to meet the times. And how many times have we had that conversation about leadership and trying to not be so self-absorbed in the way that we used to be, and actually, like, embrace more modern, every more modern times. Policy that was written 20 years ago, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think one of the big things is, especially right now, we have this huge recruitment and retention issue. And so if we're really trying to attract new, typically younger members to the fire service, we have to accept that there's going to be a, higher likelihood that there's going to be more and more tattoos, and tattoo related issues that come up and that will need to be addressed, or jewelry related issues. That's not to say that everyone is just accepted exactly as is. Now, you know, the policy will likely state that you can't have a tattoo that says something super offensive on your forehead if you're going to be
correct.
treating patients,
Yeah,
so it's not like we're saying everybody just go crazy and wild here. No, we're saying, like, identify a policy that makes sense and aligns with the current day and who you're trying to attract, and is just realistic about, the pool of potential applicants here.
right, right. So, like, if I wanted to tattoo 30-2 because I wanna remember the ratio of CPR, now if they change that, and I gotta make sure that if I look in the mirror, it's the right way, right? Like, I
I
can't.
mean, are you going to carry a mirror around,
Yeah,
Aaron? I mean,
right.
you're going to ask
Well,
the
it's for
patient
my
to tell you?
right, it's for my crew, so when they look at me, they know what we
Oh,
should be
okay.
doing,
Got it. Got it.
right? But it bring up a point, like CPR, some of the guidelines for, like, CPR and CCR, and, those have changed a little bit with the times
Mhm.
as research changes, and as society changes. And, I understand there's a professional side of it, but we also, like I said, we got to think a little bit more forward, and meet people halfway in some cases, and then also just make sure people are aware of what's expected of them, and really draw out the example. So if you don't want any neck tattoos, like, like, show an example that is not acceptable, and like, draw it out there so there aren't any questions about it. And right, like,
Yeah. Well, and I think you have to show examples, multiple examples, so it's crystal clear, because
crystal.
not everyone is going to have the same tattoo in the same location. I mean, there are certain departments that have policies where you can have a tattoo, it just can't be showing. Now, that also brings up safety risks because, if you work in Arizona and it's 118 degrees out, but you
It's a
have to
dry
wear
heat.
long sleeve, it's dry heat, yes. And you have to wear long sleeve, pants, shirt, that can create overheating, overexertion,
Yep.
so there are factors. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying departments need to consider what that could mean. And
Yep.
at the end of the day, it just has to be enforced consistently. You can't have one policy for a firefighter and one policy for a battalion chief, or one, policy for someone you do like and a different one for someone you don't like.
Yep.
Whatever the situation is, it has to be consistent.
Well, and we see this too with departments with tobacco use maybe. So let's say
Hmm.
if it's a city policy, yet the fire department doesn't follow it, and all of a sudden one person they decide to follow it as an example. I mean, you start to just get into this. You open Pandora's box for a lot of different troubles, and I
Yeah.
think the message that a lot of our guests, our leaders would say is, you know, make sure everyone is aware of that expectation, make sure that everyone's aware of that policy, and then just follow it regardless of who it is. Make sure that it's being followed and enforced, and that actually brings a stronger culture, and I think that would actually lead to more recruitment down the road because it people are
Mhm.
is better, higher job satisfaction. And you talked about
Yeah.
having to market ourselves differently because it used to just be we're the fire department, let's open the door, you, and you, we want you. And now you open the door and there's nobody there in
Yeah.
some instances. So we really have to look at this story and figure out what, and if you're listening to this, go back to your chiefs and ask what is our policy and when has it been updated and what are we going to do if this happens and how does this affect us from hiring and professionalism one of our guests, Chief Tim Settleback, said it's okay to have these uncomfortable conversations, and we need to, as a fire service, start having these uncomfortable conversations and address them before they become CBS News stories, because it doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, and I think one of the uncomfortable questions or conversations to have is this a brotherhood and a sisterhood or not? Billy Goldfeder will famously say, "Brotherhood my ass," because it's like he calls people out for when they, claim to be part of a brotherhood or sisterhood, but then they don't act on it. Um, Certainly with an industry, a career, something like the fire service, you're gonna see a lot of tattoos. It's
Right.
that it just like with the military, because of the brotherhood element and the bonding that happens. um, I mean, we have a story. I should have pulled it up, but we've got one where it's basically a collage. We've got of people who have submitted photos of their tattoos. We have one whole entire article that's just dedicated to pictures of firefighters' tattoos that honor the 343,
Right.
9/11.
Yeah. Yep.
This is a way to show support no matter what state or part of the world you're in. So what does that say to your members then if you're not being crystal clear about what that tattoo policy is? I
Yeah.
think it sets the department up not only for lawsuits but also just for a culture that is maybe not, walking the walk that they
Yeah.
say
It's
they
not a
have.
right, and that culture can change quickly because of that. It's not the way to
Mm,
build up your organization.
yeah.
Like I said, you want to avoid being on CBS News.
Yeah.
And speaking of CBS News and something that a lot of people in the fire service are talking about is the NFL incident with Damar Hamlin and um, his collapsing on the field and the unbelievable job that the responders did there, the athletic trainers did there. A lot of first responders are kind of, I would say, chiming in, but they're just I think it's a great story. Obviously he's made a full recovery almost. I don't know about playing football again, but I mean he's there doesn't seem to be any deficits. But a lot of responders are like, they looked at how the NFL and the rest of the world responded to that, and we're just like, well, that's just a Tuesday
Yeah.
for us. Um, what was your response when you saw that? Like knowing, you're very unique because what's going on both sides of that. Like, how did you feel when you saw that?
Oh, I think just like anybody, I mean, I was mesmerized and horrified, terrified for him and what was happening on the field. You see the heartbreak on his teammates' faces, when they circled him so that the cameras couldn't see, what was happening on the field. And then just so elated to learn that he was okay.
Oh god,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
when we showed we ran the story where he, was given the heart, flashing the heart to his team. Oh my gosh, just waterworks because it's just so glad. But yeah, this is a really interesting one because it's both a really heartwarming story, but also controversial too because man, there are a lot of people chatting up each other on social media about this,
Mhm.
and there were a lot of different takes on it.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot
you
of
know,
memes
a
that
lot of
that
memes like focusing on the while the I mean, there were some that were focused on, oh, look at the folks who are probably have the
least paid.
least paid
Yeah.
people treating the people who, are paid the most, and then you got people saying, like, don't go there. Like,
Yeah.
why go there?
Yeah.
And then there's the whole other element of it, like you said, where, this is just another day for EMS crews.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, typically you don't have a bazillion people watching it live on television.
Yeah.
Um,
It
but
doesn't
then
change how we react though and respond as first
no,
responders, right? Like,
doing your job.
yeah,
Um, I will say though, one of the takes that came up was this idea of, oh, the players, they're so devastated, but we just do this every day. And the devil's advocate in me would say I think the point that's being missed there is it's different when one of your own goes down.
very
That
much
was
so.
one of their own, you
Very much
know.
so.
It's
Yep.
different, when you pull, a someone you don't know out of a building. And I should say I have not pulled someone out of a building. I understand that I have a unique perspective here on the outside, but um, it's different. I have to imagine it's different than pulling, your crew member out of
Yeah.
a building.
Yeah.
And if you watched your own crew member having chest compressions, um, there's just and maybe for some it's the same, but I think for a lot of people it would be different
Yeah.
because of your connection, because you're trained to just go to work and not have all the emotions, but that's really hard to turn off when it's one of your own.
Yeah, I think, you hit it right on the head. The difference here is they're watching, almost, like a crew member, a family member, and that's traumatic. For it to happen live in front of, 10 million people, that that probably adds to it a little bit, obviously. And I think it was a very now that the story has come out and that he's going to be okay. Like I think it, I like I said, I try to look at the positives. Like those responders did exactly what they needed to do, and I think it showed, um, it showed the people watching just how valuable we are, um,
Yeah,
and also just how delicate life can be. And I think, the takeaways from that are we do a damn good job as first responders, regardless of what we're paid and who's watching us. And we
yeah,
have to do that.
yeah,
Um, Football is secondary, which I thought was great to see people say, this doesn't matter. This is just a game. This is,
mhm,
when someone's life is at stake, it's a lot different. And,
yeah,
I, that's just my take on it. And my kudos go to, to those, like I said, those responders. I watched the tape a little bit. You see the first person on. I think they were motioning for the AED to be brought right away,
mhm,
and they did, you know, everything they needed to do. And yeah, life is precious. You don't know. I think there's some great reasons and reasoning and rationale as to why that happened. And from an EMS standpoint, it may happen in other football games, whether it's college or high school or anything. And I look at it from the EMS standpoint, went back to my crew the next day and went, okay, so now that happens on the hockey rink today. What are
mhm,
we doing? How are we responding? You know,
yeah,
how are we getting that caught out in the hockey rink? Where are we going with it? And
yeah,
tried to use that as a training ground for, all right, there are these scenarios all around us, and we
yeah,
just let's look at this to be better And, the human side of it too is we're exposed to things as first responders that, we just we're wired a little bit differently. And so,
Yeah.
like, that's why I really love the story, is because if you step back and you look at the human side of stuff, and you can also look at the first responder side of stuff and hopefully grow from both situations, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was a master class in showing what EMS does and the value of EMS. And I hope that beyond just the training that might come out of it, like, okay, let's take this like you did. That's great, and how do we make sure that we're prepared for that? But then when you look at the greater public, hopefully an incident like this will also open people's eyes to this is the type of stuff that EMS crews do every single day. You just
Yeah.
happen to be seeing this one.
Right.
That's
And
that's the only difference is you happen to be watching this game.
in front of me, and PIOs, use
Mhm.
this to talk about CPR and how much,
Yeah.
a very quick response and CPR can help save a life. And in this case, it's a firsthand example of it. So
Yeah.
that's another part that can come out to use this as an educational piece for the general public.
Yeah.
And and if people get offended by that, like, oh, you're utilizing this situation to, for whatever, whatever benefit. Look, yeah, in a way, but, like, isn't that what we wanna do as a society, is utilize these things to get better and to bring awareness to certain things so it doesn't happen to more people? And if it does, we're equipped to and we're prepared for it, right? Like, isn't
Yeah.
that the purpose? So, yeah.
Exactly. Well, and I think you have to ask yourself, like, what would Damar Hamlin say about this? I think Damar Hamlin would be pretty happy. Again, I don't know him, but I'm guessing he'd be pretty happy to see that departments are using this as an opportunity to encourage people to get CPR training because it saved his life and it could save other people's lives. I mean,
Exactly.
good can come out of this. And it's okay for good to come out of situations. I mean, Damar Hamlin had a charity that like skyrocketed
Oh,
to
yeah,
like
right?
$10
Like,
million or
yeah.
something that day. Obviously, that wasn't planned, but people wanted to help. Like the good in people comes out. I personally went and watched some CPR videos that night. I
Awesome.
did. It's
Yeah.
like kind of like it was just one of those things where I thought, "Holy crap, like I need to figure out, make sure I know that I'm up on my skills too." I think that was probably happening across the country. I mean, we saw news reports that searches for CPR skyrocketed,
Yeah. Right? So you
because it good came out of this, and of course, thank God he's okay, and hopefully we'll be back playing at some point.
Possibly. I mean, he's made a great recovery, and
Yeah,
that's a whole another part of that story.
yeah.
But I think that's using a particular story that was very prevalent, and getting better from it and learning from it, and understanding just the brevity of it, and how it can play in our lives. And there's another story on Fire Rescue One, unfortunately, about a firefighter from Chicago, Frank Nunez, who passed away. And there was a video of him taking one of his final rides in an ambulance going home. And
Mm,
I think his dog was on there too, and which
mm,
always hits me. But he passed away from cancer, and utilizing Frank's memory to talk about cancer. And look, cancer is very prevalent in the fire service, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. And um, January is Firefighter Cancer Awareness Month. The IEFF, the IFC is doing a lot with it. Firefighter Cancer Support Network. If you go, there's a lot of resources that are there. Personally, I was just at FDSOA, which is the Fire Department Safety Officers Conference, and we talked a lot about firefighter health and wellness and cancer. And you heard the stories. Some, like, unfortunately, like um like Frank Nunez, that passed, and others that got their annual medicals and found cancer at its infancy and are were able to recover from it and be cured. And this is the instance where I think as a fire service, we need to really take notice. We need to listen to these stories and take them to heart, take them back to our departments. Early detection is one of the best ways. Taking care of yourself from a fitness standpoint, from a nutrition standpoint, all play into preventing and decreasing your chances of cancer. Wearing your gear, wearing your PPE, your SCBA in overhaul situations and deconning properly. All of these steps can really do a lot to mitigate chances and to minimize. But as a brotherhood, we need to start showing our concern for each other and calling each other out when some of these things aren't done. And I think that begins with health and wellness. That begins in stress management and sleep and nutrition and decon. And the biggest takeaway from that, and I could go on for hours on this, and those that know me probably have heard me go on for hours about it. But I really think brotherhood and sisterhood needs to develop into more positive lifestyle accommodation and more positive lifestyle examples. We're very good at, going out and partying and drinking together and celebrating, a firefighter's promotion and sometimes their lives. We need to be better at trying to protect each other, trying to uh, encourage each other to be more healthy, especially on the cancer side. And so, I just think that that is going to be and should be everyone's focus for 2023 because these conferences that I'm going to, I'm starting to get a little bit fired up, mad
Mhm.
because we know the stats. This data is getting worse.
Mhm.
And I think we just need to wake up and start having difficult conversations to each other about put your SCBA on.
Mhm.
Hold on, let's go decon. You need to look at your health. You need to get your annual medical. So I'll get off my
Yeah.
soapbox on that, but I believe that you know the research is very daunting against us, and we need to start to really care. If we care enough about each other, we should need to start making those positive changes. So, and
Yeah.
I know with this, there's quite a few stories about cancer on Fire Rescue One, some good, some bad. As a matter of fact, like instances where firefighters have passed, and
Mhm.
um,
Well,
any other things that stand out for you for cancer awareness?
yeah, what came to mind while you were talking is the part of this is just sharing personal stories. I think there's a lot of power in that. We just ran an article that Jerry Brandt, who writes about grants in the fire service for us, he shared his skin cancer experience.
Mm,
Billy Goldfeder, as most people know, has shared a lot about his prostate cancer experience. He started 40 Plus Fire. Um, the more we can normalize talking about it and going to the doctor and encouraging each other and saying, I mean, that was a big part of Billy's initiative is like, here, I'm just going to be honest and tell you everything because that's why some people don't go get checked is because there's this fear of the unknown. They don't know what it's going to entail. So he just lays it all out there for you. If you
yeah,
remove the fear, you're more likely to take care of it. And really, so much of cancer awareness and prevention is the early detection. And so if you might not feel like you have the words, that's okay because other people have them for you. There are documents, and we'll put these in the show notes, but the IFC has a list. It's literally a one pager that you can print out and take. It might be 2 pages, but you
yeah,
can print it out, take it to your doctor, and say, hey, you might not know about this,
yeah,
because let's face it, doctors, they've got a million things going on. They're not like completely dialed into what the fire service
yep.
what's happening in the fire service or the fact that it was just declared like a class 1 carcinogen
Carcinogen.
career.
Yep.
So you can print it out, you could take it to them and just hand it to them and say, "These are the unique risks that I face,
Here's what I
and
need to be tested for.
yeah, this is
Yeah.
what to test me for.
Yeah.
Let the
Fa
expert help you. You don't have to know everything. Let the experts do what they do. Um, but
f
they'll help you, and then brother and sister firefighters can help you through sharing those stories and
Yep.
kind of relieving some of that fear and anxiety around going to the doctor.
Fire, the First Responder Center for Excellence, FRCE, has both, of those as a PDF that you can just download and
Mm.
print, and one is a letter to your doctor, and then the other one is what they need to be looking for, and
Yep.
I've sent numerous people there this month, and, my pledge is to continually send people there. That's what I printed off. I've already sent that to my doctor, like, through my charts and through messaging. You can send that to them ahead of time. It introduces it just like Janelle was saying, and then it talks about why you need these different tests, and hopefully your doctor will advocate for you to get them. And those are available through First Responder Center for Excellence,
Mhm.
and they're also on, I think, Firefighter Cancer Support Network and Science to the Stations also. So there's quite a few websites that do that. But I think it starts with that. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you are going to the doctor regularly, and then promote that to other members of the around you, right? Um,
Mhm.
so with that, I think I wanted to ask. I've been waiting to ask as far as, like, talking about annual medicals and being better, and what are you doing this year? What's so far, like, what's driving you to be better, and how have you tried to take all this stuff in that we talk about and apply it to yourself?
Oh boy. Okay, Aaron. I'll just be real with everybody. Started
Yep.
strong this year, took a bit of a dive in the third week of the month. Not that I should be using excuses, but we did have quite a bit of rain out here in California, and sadly, part of our house flooded. So that
Yes.
sort of like derailed my week, even though I know what I should be doing is setting up getting into such a habit that even when like life happens like this that you don't become instantly derailed. So right now, this week, I'm getting back on track. Flood
Hey.
situation is handled. Got my
Yes.
Fitbit on again, drinking
Yes.
some water, going to bed early. So I have I can't remember if I talked about this in our health and wellness fitness episode with Jim and Dan, but I did start one of these tracker apps, like a habit tracker app. So I get pings on my phone asking me, did I take a walk today? Did I drink X number of ounces of water? Little things, and I have to like check in at the end
Awesome.
of the day. I can't say that it's a perfect. I can't say I'm checking the box every day, but I'm trying and I'm getting there and
Good.
trying to just do, like I'm trying to take Jim and Dan's advice and bite off like a little bit at a time because I tend to go all in when on things and get a little burned out. Like I want to go from doing nothing to like running a marathon, and that isn't going to happen.
No.
uh, so I need to be a little smarter and set more reasonable goals for myself. So,
Awesome.
how about you? How's your year going so far?
I'm having all the fun, and first of all, we are actually. I don't want to give it all away yet, but I'm working on a challenge for Better Every Shift, and I think I've required. I've kind of involved some leaders of the fire service, and I think we'll maybe announce the full thing in contest in a later one. Um, I've been having some conversations with some of the great people that I get to talk to, and applying it. I've been dry in January, been and great with that. And personally, fitness side I do pretty well, and I just wanted to continually work on that. And frankly, when his whole thing about just take 10 minutes every day and learn something about being better at your job,
Yeah.
and I use that, and I've been doing that every day. Now I haven't necessarily always focused on fire. I've actually, believe it or not, tried to figure out ways I can be better at this podcast, And right now someone's going, "Well, it's not working, Zam. It's just not working." But I try, and that's the whole point of it. Is I I might be failing and falling, but I'm falling forward, and I feel much better about that. And yeah, that's it. I feel great trying to do those things. You know, and I ask you a lot about for feedback, and it's a great time then to bring back or bring out the fact that we do want your feedback as a listener to email us at bettereveryshift at firerescue1.com. Please leave comments. Please rate and review. We read these, and if you want to hear different topics, or if you want to hear a different host, I guess you can try that as well. But I take the feedback, and really I'm trying to grow and be better with it, to be able to offer a better message, and to just be a better first responder in person. So yeah, I'm excited to see and hear more about your journey, and myself to grow. So with that, do you have anything else? This is a great little conversation. Turned into a nice little kind of episode here, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. And we hope to do this about once a month, kind of giving a perspective on what the big news from the month. So we'll do that, but we are open to suggestions. We are very much interested in your feedback. So thank you so much to our listeners, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, please do leave comments. Send us a message. Janelle and I are really are the ones that read all this. And again, this is for you, and with the intention of really just trying, to get you to learn something, to do something, to share something, to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening, everybody.